After suffering 6 straight division defeats, the Rays have jetted south to Miami, where they've enjoyed success in the past. But the resurgent Marlins are on the upswing, and the big bat of Giancarlo Stanton is always lurking. It falls on Alex Cobb's shoulders to keep the ball in the park and snap the Rays' losing streak. It's the Citrus Series Showdown right now on Sun Sports.
From Marlins Park in Miami, the Tampa Bay Rays continue their road trip with the first of 2 games in Miami, the first of 4 in the Citrus Series, as the Rays will host Miami beginning on Wednesday. Tonight they kick off the first of 2 with the Marlins at their place, where they have played very well. Hi, everybody. Todd Cowles filling in for Dwayne Stats alongside Brian Anderson and BA as we get ready for this series. The Rays trying to bounce back after being swept by Boston, being swept by Toronto. A very interesting series setting up because Joe Maddon and the Rays do a good job usually against a key hitter in the lineup, and one of the best in the game right now is Giancarlo Stanton.
No question about it. Giancarlo Stanton, this guy has the kind of power that you do not see very often, and he is having a tremendous year for the Marlins. Just look at this. 16 home runs, first in the National League. The 51 runs batted in, that's first in the National League by 11. The slugging percentage at .612, and guess what? Just to make matters worse, most of that damage has come here at Marlins Park. 10 of the 16 home runs here, 37 of the 51 RBIs. You had better believe that the Rays pitching staff over the next 4 days, he's going to be the focus.
37 of the 51 runs batted in right here in this building. Not an easy place to hit normally. For the Rays on the hill today is Alex Cobb, making his 3rd start since coming back from that oblique injury.
Yeah, and Alex Cobb, first and foremost for him, he's got an extra day's rest, and after that start in Toronto, you had better believe that he is eager to get back out there. Those are his season numbers over 5 starts. 3 of the 5 starts, he's given up no earned runs. So this is a guy you know that he can dominate, and the goal for him tonight is to pitch ahead. Get ahead of these Marlins hitters and then use that split change against this young, aggressive lineup. It should play very well.
We're ready for baseball on a Monday night from Miami. It's the Marlins and the Rays. When we come back, Rich Hollenberg will tell us about why Miami is so much better offensively in 2014.
AT&T, mobilizing your world. Checkers brings big flavor for a small price. Feed your craving for quality for only $1. Cha-ching! Rays and Marlins kicking off a 4-game Citrus Series, first of 2 here in Miami. Time now to check in with Rich Hollenberg.
Thanks, TK. You know, everyone's talking about this Marlins offense, but you go back the last 3 series, the Rays have had to play the Toronto Blue Jays, the hottest offense in the American League. Then they had to play the hottest team in all of baseball in the Boston Red Sox, who have now won 7 straight games. And then we bring it all the way back to the Florida Marlins, who are now the most improved team in all of baseball. This is our Toyota trend of the night. Through June 1st, look at the difference between last year and this year. The Marlins coming in at 28-28. That's a 23% increase over last year's win. So it has not been an easy road so far for the Rays. Joe Maddon knows that all too well, and he also knows what he's up against with this Marlins team.
No, they're good. They have a really nice young core group of players. They play with a lot of energy. They got some really good pitching also. They're an interesting group, having Stanton back in the middle of the whole thing being well. McGehee behind him is a very good professional hitter. They got Garrett Jones. So they got a nice thing going, and they're going to be good all year.
Todd, as you well know, this is a Joe Maddon managed team that likes to keep things very positive. I asked Joe about what's different about playing a Marlins team versus playing 2 AL East teams. He said, well, we haven't had much success against teams we're familiar with. Maybe we'll have more success with a team we're not familiar with. We'll take a break and be back with First Pitch after this.
Streak 0-6 so far on this 3-city swing. 3 in Toronto, 3 in Boston, and now 2 in Miami. Your Rays starting lineup presented by your Southern Ford dealers has Ben Zobrist leading off. And then Yunel Escobar will bat number 2. Evan Longoria hits in the 3 slot. James Loney in the cleanup slot against the lefty tonight. Sean Rodriguez 5, Desmond Jennings 6, Logan Forsythe 7. Ali Solis makes his 2nd career start, and Alex Cobb will hit and is on the mound.
Taking the mound tonight for the Miami Marlins, it's going to be the seasoned veteran left-hander Randy Wolf. You see his season numbers there. This is a guy in his 15th season, a 132 and 118 career record. He has plenty of experience. Obviously not going to overpower anybody, going to move the ball around the zone. Fastball, curveball, slider, changeup.
We're underway between the Marlins and the Rays, and a called strike to start the game. Ben Zobrist, switch hitter, hasn't had a ton of reps hitting right-handed since coming back from that dislocated thumb. Wolf making his second start since joining the Marlins. Another called strike, and Zobrist behind 0-2. Asked Bill Miller about that pitch, the crew chief behind the plate tonight.
Well, and that's what hitters will do early in a game. They want to know what is the strike zone going to be. And so on a pitch that's borderline, you'll ask like that, is that as far away as you're going to go, so you can get an idea of what you're going to swing at that night.
Pitch rides inside on Zobrist, 1-2. Miami had a tough weekend as well. While the Rays were being swept up in Boston, the Marlins started the weekend tied for first in the NL East, but they were swept at home by the Atlanta Braves. Still a very good home record on the season for Miami. There's a called third strike. Zobrist called out on strikes on a pitch that looked like it was bearing inside on him.
Well, a slider, 81 miles an hour here by Randy Wolf. You see the late movement right there, takes it right to the corner, and the ring up by Bill Miller. And that's the way that Randy Wolf is going to pitch. He is a true finesse lefty. That fastball in the upper 80s, the slider, curveball, changeup. He's going to use all four quadrants of the strike zone and just try to keep hitters off balance. That's his main and only goal.
Here's Yunel Escobar batting in the 2 spot. Back in the lineup tonight after missing some time in Boston with a left quad injury. Joe likes the way he has hit left-handers this year, so he moves him up to the 2 spot against Randy Wolf. Pitch is hit down the right field line and slicing into the crowd.
You know, it's funny how these schedules have worked themselves out over the last week or so, because it was Boston who got better at the expense of the Atlanta Braves, sweeping a home and home with them and then sweeping the Rays. And while they're doing that, Atlanta's getting well against the Marlins here at Marlins Park, sweeping the weekend series.
And Atlanta did not look very good in that series against Boston. And then they came into town here. They've always had success against the Marlins and were able to sweep Miami. Pitches up and away. And it's 2 balls and a strike to Yunel Escobar.
Now, that weekend series that the Marlins were swept, they were tied with Atlanta. Now find themselves 3 games back, trying to get some footing. The Rays, obviously, trying to make that climb out of the cellar in the AL East.
Ball towards short. Adeiny Echeverria with the play, and there's 2 outs in the first.
Well, let's take a quick look at the Miami Marlin defense as it lays itself out tonight behind Randy Wolf in the outfield left to right. Christian Yelich, Marcell Ozuna, and Giancarlo Stanton across the infield third to first. Casey McGee, Adeiny Echeverria, Ed Lucas, and Garrett Jones. Jeff Mathis will be behind the plate.
Evan Longoria, the hitter, 2 outs, nobody on, just underway. Randy Wolf on the mound, pitching for the Marlins. Basically in the slot that was vacated due to the injury of Jose Fernandez. Here's a bullet to center field, but it hangs up for Marcell Ozuna, who makes the play, and the Rays go down 1-2-3 in the first. Alex Cobb's turn to pitch in the bottom half of the first, scoreless. Went down 1-2-3 to Randy Wolf in the top half. Marlins ready to bat against Alex Cobb. Here's how their starting lineup looks, presented by your Southern Ford dealers. Christian Yelich leads off in left field. Ed Lucas getting a start for Derek Dietrich at second base. Giancarlo Stanton, mentioned him in the pregame and right before the game, the kind of season he's having. Casey McGee at third. Garrett Jones at first. Pablo Ozuna in center field. Adeiny Echeverria at short. Jeff Mathis behind the plate for Randy Wolf.
And taking the mound tonight for the Tampa Bay Rays, right-hander Alex Cobb making his third start since coming off the disabled list with that oblique injury. The season numbers very good as far as the ERA goes, 2.93 in those 5 starts. 3 of them he's given up no earned runs, but facing a different animal this year. This is not the Marlins lineup of 2013, a lot more powerful, and Alex Cobb will have to be on point tonight to have success.
First pitch of the bottom half of the first, presented by Pinch a Penny from Alex Cobb. Misses for ball 1. Yelich coming in batting .255.
When you look overall where this Marlins lineup is today, as opposed to where they ended the season last year,
oh my goodness,
what a difference.
It really is. It's an extraordinary change in less than a half a season. There's a strike, 2-1.
And it's not like the changes were wholesale, but you look last year, they were last in Major League Baseball in average, on-base percentage, runs, home runs. In fact, the only team that was under triple digits in home runs with 95. Doubles last in MLB. Almost every category that means anything,
right,
they brought up the rear in Major League Baseball, and then this year they're in the top 2-3 in the National League in many of those same categories.
Guys like Yelich at the plate now, improving as a hitter. They acquire Garrett Jones, Casey McGee. Marcell Ozuna is off to a nice start, double digits in home runs already. There's a called strike, and the count goes full to the first batter Alex Cobb sees tonight.
Well, Ozuna, one of those hitters that has made the adjustment. There's a good fastball here by Alex Cobb right there on the corner. You continue to put it there all night, you're going to have a lot of success. But Ozuna had that really good May last year, and then all of a sudden pitchers started to figure him out.
Cobb misses on the 3-2 pitch and walks the leadoff hitter.
Now let's take a quick look at the Tampa Bay defense as it lines up behind Alex tonight. In the outfield, left to right, Sean Rodriguez, Desmond Jennings, and Ben Zobrist. Across the infield, third to first, we've got Evan Longoria, Yanel Escobar, Logan Forsythe, and James Loney. Ali Solis will be behind the plate.
Solis making just his second major league start.
I just hope that he can get through an at-bat tonight.
That would be good.
That would be plus.
That would be making strides.
Yes, it would. It's all about making those adjustments and progressing.
And Lucas is the number 2 hitter tonight. Derek Dietrich, normally the second baseman for the Marlins, but just giving him a day or two. A little breather for Ed Lucas to get a chance to start. First pitch to Lucas on the inside corner for a called strike, 0-1.
About the only thing that this Marlins offense does not do, and it's not that they don't do it well, they just don't do a whole lot of it, that's run.
Right.
They've got the fewest stolen bases Major League Baseball, 15 out of 22 on the season. They pick their spots.
More than half of those are by Christian Yelich, who's on first right now. He has 8 of those 15. Next pitch is a breaking ball for called strike, 0-2.
And Alex Cobb, 2 stolen base attempts on him in his 30 2/3 innings of work, 1 successful. It's called picking your spots, 8 out of 9.
Ali Solis at the minor league level has thrown out over 30% of the runners who have tried to steal on him. So he's a good defensive catcher as well.
And you saw, the reason that Alex Cobb does not give up that many stolen bases. Last year teams 12 out of 16 against him. That's not horrible by any stretch. 1 out of 2 this year. But if he wants And when he knows there's a base stealer over there on first base, he can be very quick to the plate. Slide step, he gets the ball to the catcher in a hurry and allows him to try and make a play.
There goes Yelich. The pitch is sent on the ground past Evan Longoria into left field. On the second bounce, it went off his glove into left, and the Marlins have a quick threat, first and third, nobody out.
Yeah, and that's a tough chance for Evan Longoria. We get spoiled down there because he's so good with the glove. But this is one of those choppers where you've got to make a decision. Do I sit back on it and try to make a play, or do I charge it and try to take it on the in-between hop? Evan Longoria got caught on that in-between hop, and it bounced up and over that glove. Well, hit the glove and bounded into left field.
So a tough situation early on for Alex Cobb. Nobody out, runners on the corners, and the very dangerous Giancarlo Stanton at the dish.
Yeah, this is not the situation that you wanted to face him at any point, let alone first at-bat of the series.
Last play was ruled a base hit for Lucas. Continues to hit well here at home, where he's batting over .350 now at Marlins Park. Pitch is low, ball one. And this is a park normally, and you were talking about Stanton splits, which are remarkable, normally favors a pitcher.
Oh, I mean, it's a big pitcher's park. I think it's the home run index here last year, I believe, was 73, which what that means is it gives up home runs in a normal ballpark, 27%, fewer percentage of home runs in this ballpark than the norm. And so when you think about what he's been able to do, not only over his career, but this year at this park,
right?
That's pretty amazing. 10 of the 16 home runs. We already said 37 of the 51 runs batted in have been here.
Look at his splits. It's remarkable. The average about the same, but the power numbers and the RBI numbers better here.
At what may be the toughest park to hit in of the places that he's played so far this year.
Now, they have played more home games than road games, but still. There's a swing and a miss. 2-1. Our Buick big matchup tonight is Giancarlo Stanton versus the Rays.
Well, Todd, you said it in the open. When the Rays highlight a hitter, more times than not, they're able to find a weakness, a hole, and exploit it during the course of a series. And they've been able to do that against Stanton, as those numbers would show you.
2-2.
Well, look at the last two pitches. What were they? Fastballs, middle in, actually running in off the plate on this one, under the swing. Stanton, all power hitters. They love the fastball, want to hit the fastball. They want to crush the fastball that's close to him. Well, you see where it is on Fox Track, way too close to him, and he's still going after it.
Cobb fell behind in this count. Now he's at 2-2. Could use a strikeout here. This one's low, and the count goes full. A leadoff walk to Christian Yelich. He was on the move when Ed Lucas chopped one past Evan Longoria into left field. Marlins with an early threat against Tampa Bay. The Rays went down 1-2-3 in the top half.
Boy, and this would do a lot for the confidence of Alex Cobb and that Rays dugout for that matter if he can pick up the strikeout right here. Full count, big pitch.
There goes the runner. Pitch in the dirt. That is unusual from Alex Cobb to miss by that much on a 3-2 pitch.
Alex Cobb, his command, he came into this start 30 2/3 innings on the year, 8 walks. He doesn't walk a lot of guys. He's walked 2 of the first 3 here. And you're right, Alex Cobb, usually a guy that even if the ball's out of the zone, he presents it well as a strike. That was a ball as soon as it came out of his hand. Here's your pitch by pitch to Stanton in a big spot. He missed down there with the fastball. And then again, so now you're behind 2-0, and all of a sudden you start coming fastball in. You know he wants to swing at it. This one even further off the plate, right back into the count. A little bit low there, and then he's going to try to come back with that split right here. That would end up on the plate.
Extended discussion on the mound. Jim Hickey comes out after just 3 batters in this game. Cobb has faced the Marlins 2 previous times and has good numbers against them. 2-0 with a 0.68 ERA, but he's never pitched here before. And there's always that adjustment to a new mound, first time ballpark.
How about the catcher?
And Ali
Solis. I mean, they've not worked together, with any kind of, maybe in spring training you get a few innings here or there, but not when it counts, not in a game like this.
First pitch way up high to Casey McGee.
The one thing, I don't think right now that matters a whole lot. Right now it's Alex Cobb finding his rhythm, finding his release point. You know, a lot of pitches have been down. They've been just off the plate. There was a curveball there that came out of his hand funky.
Alex is definitely searching for it right now, and he finds it with that pitch for a called strike.
Well, this is where it helps to have that third pitch. You know, we talk about Chris Archer, and we're going to get to see him in the ball game tomorrow night, having that third pitch. You know, if the first two aren't clicking right away, you've got that third pitch that can buy you a little bit of time until everything comes back into rhythm. And Alex trying to use that curveball right now to do that.
McGee, base hit up the middle, will drive in two. Giancarlo Stanton goes first to third, and Casey McGee, so good this year with runners in scoring position, picks up RBIs 35 and 36 on the season. Still nobody out. Miami has a 2-0 lead.
The key that we said in the open for Alex Cobb was to be able to pitch ahead in the count and then use that changeup to put these guys away. They're young, they're aggressive, they want to swing the bat. The problem here has been 2 of the first 4 hitters now have been walked, obviously falling behind, and then a couple of base hits. So he's not working from out in front, and when you do that, you make yourself a little bit more predictable, and that gives the team a better chance for success.
Marlins coming in second in the National League in batting average and second in the National League in runs scored. We mentioned where they were last year. A remarkable turnaround. They're out to a quick 2-0 lead on Alex Cobb tonight. Here's Garrett Jones. Takes a breaking ball on the outside corner.
And there's nobody out first and third. And as far as 2 runs go, this is a team that last year, 76 of the 162 games, which works out to 47% of their games,
right,
they scored 2 runs or fewer.
Almost half. Almost half. 81 would be exactly half. That's unbelievable. Their pitching staff had the best ERA for a season in franchise history, and they lost 100 games because they just got no offensive support last year.
None whatsoever. You can imagine how hard it was going out there pitching, knowing, you know, at least half the time, you got 2 to work with, maybe. That's 2 or fewer, so that doesn't mean you're getting 2 76 times. That's the top end.
Exactly.
Now go win a ball game.
They've already scored 2, nobody out here. Rays will try and turn 2 and give up the run. Forsythe, Escobar, Loney, they do get the 2, so no RBI for Garrett Jones, but it's now 3-0 Marlins.
Now this is exactly what the Rays needed here. I mean, try to slow this onslaught down here early on. They get the 4-6-3 double play. You've spotted the Marlins 3, and it just shows you're just going to have one of those games where the Rays are going to have to get their offense going. And hopefully Alex Cobb can settle down and keep them here.
Yeah, very unusual start to the game for Cobb with his command. A couple of walks, as you said, getting behind in counts. Marcell Ozuna is the batter. Base is cleared now. 2 outs. There's a called strike, 0-1.
As you saw with those numbers, another powerful member of this Marlins lineup. Double-digit, 10 home runs, 35 runs batted in.
That ball rocketed to left field. Rodriguez back, and he'll watch it off the wall on the fly. Sean gets the ball back in, but Ozuna has a stand-up double.
And I'm going to tell you something. That ball came off the bat with some hair on it. I mean, that was a line drive by Ozuna that about knocked the wall down here in left field. And down the line, you're not getting cheated at 344 with the roof closed. So that's going to play even bigger. And that was just a line drive that never came down. Most ballparks, that's, you know, second, third row taking out a fan.
So 2 walks, 2 singles, and now a double allowed by Alex Cobb to the first 6 hitters. Now the shortstop, Adeiny Echeverria. Marlins out 3-0. Pitch upstairs, 1-0.
And you see, going back to that curveball to try to get these Marlins hitters off of the fastball because he's having trouble with the changeup right now. And, you know, that curveball, he's thrown 3 or 4 of them. One of them's been a strike.
Alex had a consecutive scoreless inning streak of 24 2/3 snapped in his last start in Toronto. Blue Jays were hitting everybody at the time and got Alex for 6 runs in 5 innings.
And even so, in that start, his stuff was much more crisp than it is tonight.
No doubt. All fouled out of play. Yeah, he was surprised, Cobb was, at a couple of the home runs. Adam Lynn, first pitch, looking for a curveball, got it, hit it over left field wall. Then the one that really shocked him was the sequence to Encarnacion.
It shocked me probably just as much. That was a fastball that was in off the plate with some elevation. And Encarnacion ripped those hands through so quick and caught that ball clean, and it was a bomb. I mean, was not cheap by any stretch.
Echeverria goes down swinging. So a double play and a strikeout gets Cobb through, but 3 runs on 3 hits, and the Marlins lead it 3-0 after 1. Celebrate Father's Day early with the Rays when they take on the Mariners on Sunday, June the 8th. The first 10,000 fans 14 and older get a James Loney grill set presented by KM. Get your tickets now at RaysBaseball.com or call 888-FAN-RAYS. Randy Wolf only needed 9 pitches to retire the Rays in the first. Now he'll deal with James Loney, Sean Rodriguez, Desmond Jennings, the first 3 in the Rays lineup. Not many of the Rays have faced Wolf because he's made almost all of his starts in the National League. First pitch to Loney is a called strike. Loney being one of those guys who has seen him a decent amount, along with Yunel Escobar. James 3 for 10 with a couple of walks against him. 37-year-old Wolf in his 3rd organization already in 2014.
Yeah, he had a strange road in getting here. You know, he was signed to a minor league deal in February by the Seattle Mariners. Looked like he was going to make that team.
It seemed like he had.
Yeah, and then there was that provision that they wanted him to sign. He didn't want to do it. He ends up asking for his release, which they granted to him March 25th.
On the ground, the flip from Jones to Wolf, and Loney's retired.
And he would go on to sign a minor league deal with the Diamondbacks, and then obviously a need arose here in Miami with the Marlins, and he ends up signing with them and getting an opportunity.
Imagine, he's a veteran, obviously. He's been around the block. He's 37 years old now. He's pitched a long time with the Phillies. But imagine the conviction you have to have in yourself to say, you know what, I may have made your rotation, but I'm not sure I like this contract language, and I'd rather take my chances somewhere else.
Yeah.
Coming off at second Tommy John surgery.
Coming up a second Tommy John surgery, which really at that point you're looking for a job anywhere.
Right.
You'll do anything to get back out on the field. And you're right, was not a fan of the contract and the language. Well, we'll have to break it down later in the game, but it's very convoluted, and he was able to see through all of that and thought it would be better if he went and tried to get an opportunity elsewhere than to stay there. And basically what it boiled down to, the thought was, okay, I'm going to make your opening day rotation, and then within about, 45 days, you're going to let me go, and you're going to not owe me anything. So, he said, I'll take my chances elsewhere.
Sean Rodriguez, the batter, 1 out, nobody on. Breaking ball misses. It's 2-1. Well, Wolf feels like he's throwing the ball. He never was a fastball guy in the mid-90s, always right around 89, 90, 91. Still 88, 87, 89. But he'll throw in that curveball and the changeup. Really slow curve.
Well, you start to think the type of pitcher he is. He's got a lot of Mark Buehrle in him. Stuff is a little bit, harder than Mark Buehrle. You think of a guy like Jason Vargas, a guy like Bruce Chen. Those are the types of pitchers. These Rays hitters haven't had a lot of, at bats against them. If you want to say, here's a guy to think about Vargas when you go out there. Those are the names that'll be thrown around because that's the style.
And that's the pitch that Sean Rodriguez couldn't lay off at 2-2.
No, and he's been able to execute it now twice for 2 strikeouts. That's the pitch that he got Ben Zobrist looking, and then down and in, and you see Sean Rodriguez. That ball is out there. You see it moving towards you, and as soon as you start your swing and you say it was half-hearted at best because he realized that ball was breaking below his bat.
And that's how it's basically his slider, even though it's a slower pitch. It's almost like a slurve.
It is. It's in between that curveball slider. It is that slurvy little mix, and he'll just move it around. You saw the slow curve.
Yep.
He did not get over for a strike. But he just lulls you to sleep, moves the ball around, tries to miss the barrel of the bat. That's his game. Those pitchers have given the Rays trouble.
Desmond Jennings, the hitter, down 0-1. Desmond coming in batting .232. That's a called strike, and Wolf is pounding the strike zone early, 0-2.
And that's the way that he needs to pitch. He is not the kind of a guy that can fall behind 2-0, 3-1. Hitters at that point can have a field day off of most pitchers, and especially a guy like Randy Wolf that's not a stuff guy.
Backs Desmond off the plate. It's 1-2. The Rays have seen Randy Wolf before. He's made 3 appearances against them, but the last time they saw him as a starter, it was so long ago that it was actually the Tampa Bay Devil Rays that he pitched against in 2007 as a starter. Last time they faced him as a starter. There he goes, Jennings chasing that breaking ball, and the Rays go down 1-2-3. Randy Wolf needed 9 pitches in the first, only 13 in the second, and he's retired 6 straight.
Bottom half of the second inning. Alex Cobb back for his second inning of work. Cobb has fared well against the Marlins in his career. 2 starts, both at Tropicana Field, owning a 1.35 ERA. During that time, only allowed 5 hits in his 2 starts against Miami. But he did get roughed up in the first inning today, as the Marlins had a 2 RBI base hit by Casey McGee, as well as a double play that resulted in a run. They lead 3-0. Jeff Mathis will lead things off.
Jeff Mathis at 300 average in 18 games. This is a guy, a career average under 200. I mean, he is a defensive catch and throw guy, call a game, knows what he's doing behind the plate. Has not always been that way with the stick, but so far this year, good early returns.
And a similar situation with the Marlins as the Rays are facing, and that Mathis was getting a couple starts a week. Now he's the #1 guy. Jared Saltalamacchia out with a concussion on the 7-day DL. 1-0 pitch is grounded foul.
Well, Saltalamacchia was one of their big offseason acquisitions. How about this? We talked about the Marlins offense last year really struggling. The catcher's position last year had a 194 average, worst in Major League Baseball. 529 OPS, worst in Major League Baseball. So that's why they went out and signed Saltalamacchia, knowing that maybe this ballpark, one attempt there fouled off. Maybe this ballpark was going to take some of that power away from Saltalamacchia, but that was a price that they were willing to pay to bring him in here, thinking that his gap-to-gap power would play very well and upgrade the catching position offensively.
Saltalamacchia was off to a good start and then struggled in the month of May. One-two pitch is fouled off of the plate. It stays 1-2. Mathis was with the Angels. Joe Madden knows him very well.
What's amazing too, that these catchers, if you can handle a pitching staff, and at this point with these new metrics on catching, if you can frame pitches very well and receive pitches very well, you can play this game about as long as you want. They don't look at it so much more from the offensive end as Alex Cobb picks up the strikeout on Jeff Mathis. There's so much of an emphasis put on catching ability that guys like this will play for a long, long time, even though they don't have big sticks.
So yeah, pitch riding in on Mathis, second strikeout for Cobb.
And after the rough start, Alex Cobb is one of those guys you don't worry about. You feel that he is more than capable, and we've seen it in the past, of making adjustments and coming back strong.
Alex needed 28 pitches in the first. Wolf is through 2 with 21 pitches. Randy Wolf, the batter now. This is not your typical number 9 get through the lineup with an out guy. He's a 184 career hitter. He does have 5 home runs. There's a called strike. But Wolf hasn't hit very consistently in a while. We mentioned he's mostly started in the National League. 375 of his 380. 375 of his 380 starts have been as a National League pitcher. Did play briefly and pitched briefly with Baltimore in 2012. I should say appearances. 368 of his 370 starts are as National League. A pretty good hitter down in the count, 1-2. Alex trying to put the wheels back on this cart after a tough first inning. That's upstairs, 2-2.
Well, 132 career wins for Randy Wolf. He's won in double digits 8 times. This is his 15th season. That's the lure of the game. You love to play the game. 2 Tommy John surgeries.
Yeah, how about that?
And just still continues to plug away.
Coming back from his second one after missing the 2013 season.
I'm glad to see that somebody could.
Well, you had 2 and would have had to have a third.
Yeah, I'm in on the waiting list right now for my third. Decided to forego it because I'm not playing anymore.
2-2 pitches ripped, but Forsythe is there. Hit well by Randy Wolf, but he is retired. It's now time for you to tweet your photo using hashtag SunSportsFanPhoto. That gives you a chance to have it shown in our broadcast later on in the game. And this is brought to you by AT&T. Use the hashtag SunSportsFanPhoto. 2 outs, nobody on. Back to the top of the lineup for Christian Yelich. Two walks issued by Cobb in the first, one to Yelich, the leadoff hitter. He came around to score. Alex, making his 6th start of the year, has only walked more than 2. One other start. That was his first start, where he was out of sorts in that first start against Toronto. Never really got in the rhythm that night.
Well, you know what? He never established his fastball that night. You know, that was the night that he came out. We saw a lot of off speed, a lot of the curveball, saw a lot of the changeups. Never really established that fastball. And I remember watching that game thinking, who is this guy? Mm-hmm. This is not the Alex Cobb. This is not the formula that he has used to abuse opposing lineups. And he had a rough outing. Well, he got back to his old self the next start. Of course, then, you know, the DL would come not too long after that. But he got back to what he does best and was very, very good. 7 shutout in Cincinnati.
Cobb had 3 starts prior to the injury. The 7 shutout in Cincinnati was his last start before going on the DL. Then he followed that up by 6 2/3 against Oakland of shutout baseball.
Yeah, and it was the Texas game. The 7 shutout against Texas, then Cincinnati.
Cobb gets a 1-2-3 inning there, so he comes back after a tough first inning. And we head to the 3rd with the score: Miami 3, Tampa Bay 0. Top of the 3rd, Rays trailing 3-0 to the Marlins. In tonight's game and all season long, Tires Plus will donate $100 for the Pediatric Cancer Foundation for every Rays home run during televised Sun Sports games. Televising all 4 of the Citrus Series contests. The Rays have won 13 of the last 14 against the Marlins. They'll have 2 here in Miami tonight and tomorrow, and then 2 back at Tropicana Field as Logan Forsythe takes a strike from Randy Wolf. Wednesday is the normal 7:10 start time, as is tomorrow. Thursday, it's a late afternoon contest, 4:10. All of them can be seen right here on Sun Sports. Todd Callis alongside Brian Anderson. Dwayne Stats will be back for that series at Tropicana Field. Glad to be able to fill in for him for a couple of games. Forsythe, Ali Solis, Alex Cobb, 7, 8, 9 in the Rays lineup. And the Rays have not yet reached base yet, as Randy Wolf needed 21 pitches to get through the first 2 innings. This is off the end of the bat, 1 and 2.
Well, and you see right there, Randy Wolf, his ability to change speeds. That at 78 miles an hour, Forsythe, that ball was right off the end of his bat, a cue shot. And that's what he's all about. You've got to almost, there's so much better stuff in the game right now as far as, velocity from starting pitchers are up probably 2 or 3 miles an hour over a few years ago. And so when you get a guy like this, it's tough to stay back.
Called third strike, says Bill Miller on the outer half.
Yeah, and he went with another changeup at 77, and this time Logan Forsythe did not even take a swing at it. Fouled off the 78, was out in front. He takes this, and I'm assuming that he's thinking either up or up and off. It was close. But again, you leave it into the hands of the home plate umpire on borderline pitches, and you just don't know which direction they're going to go with it.
Miller, the crew chief, behind the dish. Vic Carapaz at first, Adam Hamari at second, and Chris Conroy at third as Ali Solis takes a called strike. Solis looking for his first big league hit. He's 0 for 1 this year for the Rays and did not even finish his at bat.
Yeah, he's looking to do that here in his second start. That one did not last very long, and that was where that ball into the dirt off the catcher and hit him right in the nose. And the nasal contusion jumped up and got him.
Nasal contusion. He had some blurry vision. He wasn't able to see very well. Left the game with a count of 1-2. Jose Molina came in, took a called third strike, and it goes on Solis' card. As per the baseball rules. Swings through that one, it's 1-2.
I had one of those at-bats where we had a transformer blow in San Diego against the Padres, and Curt Schilling was batting, and it was an 0-2 count. And so they suspended the game. We're going to start it again the next day. He's not going to come back and pitch, so they threw me up there to take his at-bat. Say the strikeout went on Curt Schilling's record.
But that's one of those at-bats where you had no way to lose. There's a called third strike. That's 5 strikeouts of the first 8 hitters for Randy Wolf.
And that's ridiculous. Randy Wolf is not a strikeout guy. He doesn't have the stuff that should be rolling in and punching out this many guys. That's not only 5 of the first 8, that's 4 in a row. And he just right there with the fastball locks up Solis. Yeah, but that was the at-bat. Woody Williams, who was pitching the night before, he went out to start the next day.
Really?
Yeah, he's gonna continue on that start. And so what I ended up thinking was, okay, when he sees that a pitcher is going to pinch hit here, he's probably going to go first pitch fastball. So if he says yes, he's going to go fastball. If he shakes, I'm looking breaking ball. Well, he didn't shake.
This ball's hit pretty hard by Alex Cobb. He was looking for his first big league hit, but Echeverria makes the play. We'll have more on that. We come back. It's a 3-0 Marlins lead heading to the bottom of the third. Is Marlins lead 3-0. The Rays Summer Concert Series returns to be a part of the first concert of the year when Weezer takes the stage after the Rays host the Mariners on Saturday, June 7th. They'll play hits like Say It Ain't So and Island in the Sun. The concert is free with the purchase of that game's ticket. Get your tickets now at raysbaseball.com/concerts or call 888-BAN-RAYS.
They left a couple of good songs off of that list.
Didn't they?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot more there with Weezer.
I'm surprised that I assume they're still playing their greatest hits. That they just left them off that copy, but we'll hear them. We'll hear them on Saturday.
Oh, it'd be part of the encore. You know how they go.
Hey, lots of Rays fans showed up for this series, as they usually do in Miami, making the trip down south and east as the Rays play 2 here against the Marlins. So you were expecting, if he didn't shake, we had to finish that story.
Yeah, very quickly. So that's what I approached when I went up there, and Woody Williams takes the mound. He doesn't shake, so I'm saying, okay, that's fastball. I'm locked in. He just drops a 12-6er on me. Little hook. And I mean,
that's a respect.
Oh, I got rung up, and I had the entire infield laugh me into the dugout. Our guys laughed me into the dugout. I ran into him later, and he said, I said, you throw me a first pitch hook with no sign, without shaking? He said, I told the catcher, I don't care who comes up to pinch hit, no sign, first pitch curveball.
You outthought yourself.
Totally. I thought I had a pretty good plan of attack.
It sounds logical.
It sounded logical. Well,
Ed Lucas will lead things off against Alex Cobb. Alex had a tough first inning, 2 walks, 3 hits, 3 runs, but he pitched a 1-2-3 second, now dealing with 2, 3, and 4 in the Marlins lineup.
And really the way that the order lined itself out for Alex, it may have helped him. Going down to the bottom, 8, 9, and then 1, maybe to get him back on track, have that 1-2-3 inning, make some good pitches, get back in that good rhythm that we see him in most of the time.
It was good to see him take a healthy swing, too, because originally, as the 0-2 pitch is delivered up high, originally the thought was, let's not let him worry about hitting National League Park, move him to Sunday, have him and Bedard flip spots. But then they talked to Alex Moore. He thought the extra day's rest would be beneficial at this point, and Ron Porterfield, head athletic trainer, gave him a clean bill of health in terms of swinging the bat. There's a called third strike on the outside corner. Strikeout number 4 for Alex. All 4 have come in the last 5 hitters.
Well, and Alex, too, was looking out ahead at his starts down the road, and there just was not going to be another time to give him a day. And so in jumping back into the big league level so quickly after the oblique and not a whole lot as far as rehabilitation starts go, he said, you know what, let's take the extra day now, and then going forward I know that I'm not going to get that many. And I'll tell you what, that first time through the lineup, the 2 hardest hit balls belonged to Evan Longoria, line drive to center, and Alex Cobb, that sharply hit ground ball to short.
Pitchers did take BP yesterday as Stanton chops one slowly towards third. Evan comes in, gloves and throws. That's a nice play for the second out.
Yeah, Giancarlo Stanton, you can imagine that Evan Longoria down at third is playing back a little bit because of the power that Stanton has. And he takes that full swing and chops it. Evans got to make a beeline to the baseball, field, and throw on the run. And we've seen him do that all too well for far too long.
Giancarlo is now 4 for his last 36 against Rays pitching. It is amazing when they can lock down one guy in the lineup.
Really, we just came from Boston, and that's what they've done to Dustin Pedroia the last few years. Held him under a 200 batting average.
Casey McGee with a big 2 RBI single his first time up, takes a called strike. McGee coming in with runners in scoring position, less than 2 outs, 13 for 27, now an even 500, 14 for 28. Runners in scoring position, 2 outs. This is hit well to right. Ben Zobrist, though, has it tracked right in front of the warning track. He makes the play. And Alex Cobb has now retired 7 in a row. We head to the 4th in Miami with the Marlins leading 3-0. Nissan store for the ride of your life and save big tonight. Shop ChooseNissan.com. And by Publix, where shopping is a pleasure. Visit us at Publix.com. 3-0 Marlins from the city of Miami. Rays looking for their first base runner of the night as we head into the fourth inning. DJ Kitty Hat has made its way down to Miami.
Yeah, on top of the retro.
Yeah, that's a good look.
That is a good look. I love those retro uniforms. I love the retro hat. Everybody loves the DJ Kitty hat.
And the David Price arm tattoo sleeves. He's got he's got a lot of giveaways. He's got retro. He's got it all. He'll be happy that there'll be 18 out of 21 home games coming up after tomorrow. A lot of giveaways.
I was going to say, yeah, he can stock up.
So Ben Zobrist was called out on strikes his first time up. Didn't swing the bat his first time. Took 5 pitches, or 4 pitches rather. This one's inside and low. It's 2-1. Zobrist, Escobar, Longoria, top of the order against Randy Wolf, who has needed 31 pitches through 3 innings to get through the Rays lineup.
And this is where you want to see the Rays lineup make their move. Okay, they saw Randy Wolf. A lot of them haven't seen him. They got their first look.
On the ground, Echeverria.
So you would hope that as you start making your way through the lineup the second time, that these guys can make a move against Randy Wolf and start to chip away at this Marlin 3-run lead.
Yunel Escobar.
You know, the danger is when you have a finesse guy who
Right.
is sharp right out of the gate, mixing his pitches well, having a lot of success early. Sometimes they stay in that rhythm. It's tough, 6-7 innings before you're going to turn it over to the bullpen. They can be extremely difficult to deal with when everything is clicking. That was not the case in his last start against the Milwaukee Brewers, where he gave up 9 hits in 5 innings, 6 runs, 4 of them were earned, but really was not in a good rhythm, fell behind a lot in that game, and results showed on the scoreboard.
Mentioned he's with his 3rd organization on the season, was a starter for AAA Reno at the minor league level with Arizona. Made 6 starts, was 5-1 there with a 4.50 ERA. Then he came to the Marlins and initially was in the bullpen. There's a swing and a miss on a 2-0 pitch.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. That's the other thing that a finesse guy can do to you with a good changeup. And Randy Wolf has a very good straight change. It's not like Alex Cobb's. It doesn't bottom out like his, but it has a little fading action, and it really mimics the 4-seam fastball very, very well, and he'll use it behind in the count, as you just saw.
On the ground, and there it is, the Rays' first base hit of the night and first base runner, Yunel Escobar, with an opposite field single.
And I think Randy Wolf was expecting that play to be made out there by Ed Lucas. That was a ground ball to second base. The problem for Randy Wolf and the Marlins was Ed Lucas was pulled way up the middle, shading towards second base. There was a huge hole on the right side, and Escobar took advantage.
Mentioned Randy, not a big strikeout pitcher right now in his career. Early when he was with Philadelphia, did pick up a few more strikeouts. But that was also back in the day when guys would line up defensively pretty much straight away. You didn't have the big shifts. So now he is pitching after a year off last year. Shifts have become so much more prevalent, not just from 2013 to 14, but in the almost 2 years now since Wolf has pitched. A lot more shifts now to get used to.
Yeah, yep. And Randy Wolf, an old style type of pitcher. And, even back then, after 2 Tommy Johns, the stuff is not quite where it was back then, too. I mean, he was never a power guy,
right,
but he was firm, and he could really, cut the ball in on your hands a little bit and at times overpower hitters. Obviously not that pitcher now, but he certainly knows what he's doing out there, and I love that pitch speed range when you can take a team mid to upper 60s all the way up to 90 miles an hour. That gives them a lot to have to deal with.
Escobar dives back in.
Randy Wolf gave up 18 stolen bases in 2011. Over the rest of his career, 11 was the high, so he's not easy to run on.
I was looking at that. That didn't make any sense, because he didn't give up any steals for his whole career. Then all of a sudden, boom, 18 popped up out of 19 tries.
Right.
There is a close play. Escobar rules safe after Vic Carapazza said he was safe. George Hendrick is just discussing that move.
That's where you're going to get into that borderline. The high leg kick. That was awfully close. Awfully close.
From where he lands?
Yeah. Yeah, well, and that's what a good left-hander will do. I mean, you have that high leg kick.
In on the hands, cracks the bat of Evan Longoria. Ed Lucas makes the play.
Well, that was a good pitch there by Randy Wolf. That was that slurvy slider type that he threw right in, and that action on the pitch took it right to the barrel of Evans' bat. Watch him set up in, right in. Almost used that one as a cutter type. We've seen him use it as a slurve. That was used more as a cutter. And that's the whole goal of that pitch. When you keep the cutter, or you take your breaking ball, you try to get on top of it and get some depth to it. You'll cock your wrist a little bit, get behind it, try to keep it on the same plane. The goal is same plane pitch, but take it from the barrel to the handle. That's what he did with Evan.
Here's James Loney, 2 outs, Escobar on first. Rays have 1 hit. Marlins have 3 runs on 3 hits, all coming in the first inning on Alex Cobb. Loney grounded out to first, his first time up. Well, Randy Wolf has been around this game long enough. He knows the situation here in Miami. He was originally in the bullpen after he signed with the Marlins. Anthony DeSclafani was getting a couple of starts in place of Jose Fernandez, who will have to have or has had Tommy John surgery. And so now Wolf is in that slot. He'll have his second start tonight, but here's a ground ball to the right side. Same thing, 3-1 to wrap up the inning. But Wolf knows he has to prove himself on the mound to stay in this rotation with some guys in the minor league knocking on the door. It's still 3-0 Marlins as we head to the bottom of the 4th. Park is the Bobblehead Museum on the promenade level. First of its kind, I think, in MLB. And look at that, the old school Fred McGriff. Short sleeves, wearing the number 29. There's Joe Madden, Matty Moore, Longoria. The cool thing about that, BA, when you go down there, is those aren't just, wow, there's old school Steve Cox bobblehead. How about that?
Needs to get a bigger bat.
Carl Crawford. Those weren't just bobbling along because our camera guy set it up. They actually are on a little grid that vibrates and makes those things bobble 24/7.
Okay, you just answered my question. That was going to be it, because as we took a look at that display, that feature right there, they were all encased.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't have had time to. No. Those have to. How do they bobble? Is the floor bouncing?
Yeah, no.
Or do they have the actual? That's pretty cool.
That is really cool. And they have tons and tons. We just saw how many of the Rays or Devil Rays era?
Yeah.
Like 20 of them, 15, 20. So look at all of them.
Yeah, that's impressive.
Yeah, pretty cool stuff.
That is really cool.
So it's 3-0 here in the bottom half of the fourth inning as we pull away from the Bobblehead Museum, and Alex Cobb delivers his third pitch of the inning. 1-1 on Garrett Jones. Hit to right center field. Hit pretty well. Zobrist back. Jennings back. Zobrist calling, but Jennings makes the catch basket style at the last second.
I'll tell you what comes to mind the other night in Boston when you had Desmond Jennings and Will Myers, which would result in an injury to Will Myers' wrist. Communication again, late getting out of there. Ben Zobrist, they're both calling it. They're both running for it. And it turns out to be a nifty little catch there by Desmond Jennings as Ben Zobrist peels off.
Good evasive move by Zoe. We could see Jennings yelling. We could see the hand signal by Zobrist.
Right.
But Jennings obviously had it, and that is the center fielder's usual baseball when he has a chance.
Well, Ben Zobrist had his hand up, making sure that the Marlin bullpen knew that he had this ball. He was holding it up. Guys, I got it. We're good.
Meanwhile, Alex Cobb has been nicely on a little roll here since that double to Marcell Ozuna with 2 outs in the first inning. He's retired 8 in a row and now faces Ozuna for the second time.
And are you surprised?
No.
Yeah, I mean, really, this guy, we've seen it before when he's gotten off to a few of his starts that have started off poorly, but he's able to find it, get back into a good rhythm, and rip off some very good innings. Exactly what he's doing here tonight.
2-1 to Ozuna. There's a swing and a miss at a good pitch. 2-2. The shocking part of the start was what happened the first 6 batters.
Yeah, the walks. The leadoff walk you don't see very often. Then he walks Stanton.
On a pitch that bounced.
Yeah.
On a 3-2 pitch.
So 2 of the first 3 hitters walked. That is not Alex Cobb.
Tried to hit the outside corner with a fastball, and he just missed.
And I think all 3 players involved in that exchange thought it was strike 3.
Ozuna
Alex
like he was
thought it was.
out.
Yep, Ozuna was getting ready to head out of there. Solis was stepping to throw down to third.
Very close pitch. Alex wanted it. Instead, I'll have to make a 3-2 delivery. This one is to Longoria on 2 hops. Close play at first, and Ozuna out by less than a step.
Well, he was able to get him, but Ozuna made it a lot closer, I think, than anybody thought. Evan Longoria does a nice job when he's able to get around the baseball and give himself an opportunity to make a good throw, and that was bang, bang.
Yeah, barely.
I mean, an inch or 2.
Barely. Ozuna made that very close. Mike Redmond was at the top step of the dugout, but has thought otherwise to challenge that play. So 9 in a row retired now. 2 outs, nobody on in the 4th, and Adeiny Echeverria, who was the first of Cobb's 4 strikeout victims, his first time up. Takes a pitch for a ball, 1-0. 28 first inning pitches for Alex. He's currently at 62 as we play here in the 4th. 1-1 the count.
Well, when Alex Cobb is locked in and going good, he's efficient, he works quick. One of the few Rays pitchers that works quick. He's got that ability to get in that good roll and throw up some zeros. Well, 3 of his 5 starts so far this year, it's been nothing but zeros.
We mentioned the first inning struggles. That 3-2 pitch to Stanton. After that pitch, he stayed with his hands on his knees for an extended period of time, obviously frustrated. And then Jim Hickey came out. Usually you don't see the pitching coach after 3 batters, but they had an extended conversation. Alex obviously was not in any kind of rhythm that first inning. Counts now 2-2 on Echeverria.
And that's what leads you to believe that the talk was about mechanics. It was about something that Jim Hickey was seeing from the dugout that Alex Cobb was not making the adjustment on. So you're going to go out there, he knows his pitchers as well as anybody. He knows the keys to their delivery, and he's going to go out there and remind them and get them back in a good spot. It wouldn't be something that would be game plan issue, you wouldn't think. That game plan had already been put into motion.
2-2 pitch chopped slowly down the line, and that is going to be a foul ball by the time Longoria touches it.
And that's why, as you move through levels, really at any level, as a young pitcher, when you're learning your craft, you have to be your best pitching coach. You have to know your delivery. We've listened to Alex Cobb talk about something that I know that we've discussed before, and that is that when you're feeling good with your delivery, the best thing that you can do is go right down. How do I feel? what are my keys? Is it my hands over my head? Is it where I'm stepping? Is it where my leg kick feels like it's at? Whatever it may be, you write down when you're going good all of those different keys. You have like 2 or 3 of them, so that when things feel a little awkward, you can go back with a checklist and look at that delivery that you have and say, is this it? Are these the things clicking? And that's what these major league pitchers will do. They'll run through that checklist, and if at that point it's still not working, the pitching coach usually knows that, and that's the time he's going to go out and try to set you straight.
Right, and in addition, without Jose Molina back there, or even Ryan Hannigan,
right,
there's no second pitching coach. There's a bullet caught by Cobb. How about that? That was right into the glove. He hardly moved his glove after the delivery, and the ball found its way in there. Cobb's had some scary moments his last 2 starts. Look at this. I mean, that is right back at the pitcher, and he is through the 4th. Get another look at that last out of the inning in Phantom Cam.
Watch the ball into the glove. Watch the thumb of Alex Cobb. And then the wrist.
Ooh.
I mean, that's a lot of torque.
In the wrong direction.
Yep. You just hope he's all right. But you'd like to say what a play, but that ball was hit so hard it just found its way into Alex Cobb's glove. Too many balls back up the middle against him for his liking and anybody else's.
He was hit in the back of the thigh in the start in Toronto.
Yep.
Obviously, last year he had that terrible moment where he was hit by a line drive in the head, placed on the disabled list, missed part of the season. Here's Sean Rodriguez leading off. Now he gets Adeiny Echeverria on a 100.6 mile an hour line drive off the bat, and literally that was just reaction to get that glove up, but you can see the awkward motion with the left hand. Rodriguez takes a called strike. Sean batting in the 5th spot, so Alex not due up for another 4 batters after that. Rays have 1 hit in this game. Yunel Escobar single the last inning. After the Marlins scored 3 in the 1st, Alex Cobb has been on a roll. That's why, for a lot of reasons, you hope he's okay and able to go back out there. He's retired the last 10 batters he has faced. Sean Rodriguez ahead of the count 3-1 to start the 5th. That's ball 4. So Randy Wolf, who has been dominating the strike zone, walks Rodriguez to start the 5th. There's Alex Cobb. That's a good sign. And there's also a great new way for you to experience Rays baseball with the Rays Flex Packs. 3, 6, or 9 game packs offer fantastic savings and allow you to select any game you'd like during the season. To purchase your Flex Pack, call 888-FAN-RAYS or visit RaysBaseball.com. Starting at just $49, all games in play. No change in the price point, no matter whether there's a Weezer concert or
Red Sox or Yankees are in town. Or if you want to come up and join the Citrus Series on Wednesday or Thursday at Tropicana Field, this butt will go foul. Nicely done by Casey McGee.
Yep, a veteran player right there making a very good decision. And Desmond Jennings, this stays fair. The Rays have something working here, but watch, he realizes if it goes off the edge here, it's going to roll straight sideways, or at least at a 45-degree angle, and that'll take it foul.
Like the idea, though.
Yeah.
Desmond Jennings, Rays have struggled to get on base against Randy Wolf.
Anything for this guy right here to get on base. When he's on base, this offense is different because pitchers have to account for him. They have to account for his base stealing ability, his speed, his ability to score runs. You know, obviously then being where he is in the lineup, you know, most of the time when he's up at the top or close to the top, the guys behind him can drive him in. And so it's important for Desmond Jennings, with all of the different ways that he can work an at-bat, drop a bunt every now and then, to use them all, utilize everything in order to maximize your on-base percentage.
Wolf and Jeff Mathis having a little discussion. We're talking about Randy Wolf last inning, how he knows the situation here in Miami. And they have a youngster at the minor league level, Andrew Heaney, who's made a couple of AAA starts, 3 AAA starts, who is very close to being ready to be a big league starter. So Wolf knows he needs to have some solid starts to stay in this rotation. The Marlins feel like they're very much a contender this year, coming off last year's 100-loss season. So Randy needs to not only pitch well to save his spot in the rotation, but pitch well because at age 37, teams could always use a left-hander who can get people out.
Hey, everybody's always looking for pitching. You know, injuries happen. There are opportunities that will present themselves. And whether or not he's able to pitch himself and stay in this rotation, they may end up making the move anyway down the road. But even so, he's basically auditioning for the 29 other clubs. And anybody that has an opening says, you know what, Randy Wolf, we've been watching him. He's been throwing the ball very well. And we've seen some of these other starters in the same vein as Randy Wolf having a lot of success. Mark Burley with 10 wins, leading baseball. So, you know how to pitch, you know how to get outs. It's valuable. You're a left-hander, it's even more valuable.
If you do want to sign him, though, don't talk opt-out clause.
He may waive that this time. He may.
If it's a team in contention?
Team in contention. You don't want to mess around with that too much now as we're moving into the middle of the season.
1-2 the count to Jennings. Randy Wolf walked Sean Rodriguez to start the inning. He's allowed 1 hit and 1 walk so far. He struck out 5 of the first 8 Rays he faced. He kept Escobar close to first last inning, and now he's keeping his eye on Sean Rodriguez. Sean does have just 1 steal this year in 1 attempt.
Left-handed pitchers have such an advantage being able to stare at that runner and gauge that lead that he gets. You stare into their eyes and try to get them to sink into their heels.
Jennings, one of those guys, if the Rays are going to start hitting better against lefties, they're coming in just 5-11 against left-hand starters. You would expect his numbers would go up. And the guy on deck as well, Logan Forsythe.
That's exactly what I was going to say, Todd. I mean, Desmond Jennings, absolutely, and Logan Forsythe, that was going to be his forte coming over to this team, was the ability to hit left-handed pitching, and thus far, it's not happened. And, just a lot of players that coming out of spring training that the Rays have that are just underperforming. It's led to a team-wide slump.
3-2 pitch, ripped, fair ball, left field line. Sean Rodriguez heading to third, looking for a sign from Tom Foley. He's heading home. The Rays have their first run of the game on the RBI double by Desmond Jennings.
Well, where the Rays can have success is when Randy Wolf has been behind in the count. He walks Sean Rodriguez, and then Desmond Jennings in a full count. He doesn't want to walk him, so he's going to come with a fastball. It's not well located. Desmond Jennings drops the head and rips this ball right down the line, gets it by McGee. And the Rays off and running here. Literally.
So it's now a 3-1 Marlins lead.
Desmond Jennings' 14th RBI of the season. And that'll bring to the plate the aforementioned Logan Forsythe. See his season numbers on the year, coming in hitting just 189 against lefties. And that's where he's going to see most of his playing time this year, as he takes a breaking ball for a ball.
And it may have been a cross-up right there between Mathis and Wolf, because that curveball right there, Mathis started to come out of his crouch thinking it was going to be something different, and then reaching back down for it.
First time the Rays have had a runner on second base.
And that's typically when you change up your signs.
Here's Wolf falling behind. This is what got him in trouble against Milwaukee, and how he was so effective the first 4 innings as he was pounding the strike zone.
He becomes predictable. He becomes predictable behind in the count. Now, we've seen some behind in the count changeups that have been very good, but the more often you fall behind, the less likely you are to go to that pitch. You'll stay with the hard stuff. That'll give Rays hitters chances.
In the air to right field, not very deep. Stanton has a pretty good arm. Desmond bluffs and stays at second.
Now, that's what he threw right there, a 2-0 fastball to Logan Forsythe. And that's where you would like to see the better swing from Logan. It's a 2-0 count. You should be looking for one pitch and one spot, and he gets a 2-0 fastball, and that was kind of a protect, behind in the count type of swing, and he hit a soft little fly ball to right field.
Joe Maddon's going to go aggressive early and go to his bench for a pinch hit situation. Ali Solis, the starting catcher tonight, due up. He struck out his first time up. But we're going to see a pinch hitter here. Jerry Sands has grabbed the bat, and he's in the on-deck circle.
This is one of those situations that you ask yourself, if you're going to start Ali Solis, and fifth inning, middle of the game, you would think that Joe may have done even something like this earlier with the team falling behind early. The thought process behind, why is he in there? Why are you starting, you know what I mean?
Well, admittedly, the Rays need to give Jose Molina days off. And they don't have a lot of depth at catcher at the minor league level.
Well, today's just going to be a half day off.
That's true.
Because he's going to play.
That's true.
I mean,
He doesn't really get much time off. He had a day game yesterday, and now he's going to have to start his game around 8:30 tonight. But Jerry Sands is going to get the pinch hit here. Jerry came up from the Durham Bulls on Sunday afternoon after Will Myers was placed on the DL. And takes a called strike, 0-1.
How about that for a called strike? Now that you just assumed that was going to be a ball.
That
ball almost hit the dirt, and James Loney, I don't blame him. I mean, that was a curveball that Jeff Mathis caught on the dirt for a called strike. You just assume we're going to talk right through this 1-0 pitch. How about it?
James Loney normally not vocal on the bench, but you can see he was upset there. Here's a bullet to right field, but it hangs up for Stanton. That was a good piece of hitting. He hit that ball very well.
He hit that ball very well to right field, but what does that tell you about the Rays' mindset, how frustrated they are offensively when James Loney, who we've heard coach after coach, the time that we've spent around him, say the one thing about this guy, he's so laid back, he just does his job, he's quiet. When he's taken, I think that's why his teammates are laughing, because he doesn't explode like that ever.
You're right. It is getting frustrating. This is a team that's not scoring many runs, 5 runs in the last 4 games coming into tonight. And not often do you see your number 8 hitter, the catcher, pinch hit for, and then your pitcher hit behind it.
That's exactly where I was going to go. You pinch hit for Solis, but Cobber, you're fine. He did hit the ball hard his first time up. You got to give him credit there. And he brings that certain amount of worth out there on the mound the way that he's pitching right now. But yes, you do not see that.
Rays baseball. Alex Cobb had retired 10 in a row, so he's been on a roll since that 3-run first. And he did hit the ball hard to Echeverria's first time up. Alex does not chase there, 1-1. Alex in pitcher's BP yesterday. I know it's BP. Jim Hickey's thrown 70 or whatever he throws, but he did hit 3 over the monster. So there was that.
I know that the Rays pitchers are now 1 for their last 31.
Yes,
and that was an infield hit by Jeremy Hellickson.
Hellickson.
But they take a lot of pride in their BP, and when you watch them, it's not brain-dead hacking BP. They work on situations, they work on their bunting, they do a lot of different things. I mean, they put in good effort during batting practice, so hopefully it pays off here, and Alex can help himself with a hit.
Alex checked his swing on that last pitch. It's now 2-1.
David is probably the best hitter in BP, and I think Alex is number 2. So we'll see if that pays off in game situations. Now it's 3-1, and Ben Zobrist is on deck.
This is not the situation that Randy Wolf wanted to put himself in, with a pitcher coming up and him being theoretically able to get out of this inning, giving up just the 1 run after a leadoff walk and a double.
Maybe they confounded the veteran Wolf with the pinch hit situation, then let your pitcher hit. He might be completely confused out there.
I know that this booth is, so there's a chance.
3-1 to count on Alex. He should see a good pitch here. Whether he's been given the take sign or not, we'll find out. Desmond Jennings at second. Any base hit to the outfield should make this a 1-run game. Alex took, and it's a strike, a high strike, 3-2.
By the way, look at the outfield setup against Alex Cobb, if we could get a shot of that. I mean, you've got Giancarlo Stanton way off the line in right center. You've got your center field Ozuna pulled way over into right center. There is so much room for him if he can get the head out, which he should be able to do, because we're talking 87, 88, 89 mile an hour fastball. He'd be running for as long as he wants.
Called third strike. So Wolf comes back to get Sands the pinch hitter and Alex Cobb to end the inning. The Rays do score 1 on 1 hit. It's now a 3-1 Marlins lead. Has retired the last 10 batters he has faced, and Randy Wolf, making his second start with the Marlins, has gone 5 innings, only allowed 2 hits and 1 run with a walk and 6 Ks. That is our Chevy game summary. Rays had a shot to add to that 1 run last inning with Desmond Jennings on second, but he stayed there. And in the process, Ali Solis was taken out of the game, and Jose Molina will be behind the dish for the Rays. Solis was pinch hit for. Jerry Sands lined out to right, hit the ball hard. But unfortunately, Alex Cobb and the Rays still trailed 3-1.
Yeah, unfortunate there, the way that inning started out with the walk and the double. You're hoping for at least 2. Maybe you can have a real big inning tied up, go ahead. But Wolf limited the damage. The only good thing for the Rays is coming around again. You're going to have Ben Zobrist. That lineup for the 3rd time we'll get a chance to see him, as long as Alex Cobb continues to do his job, and that's throw up zeros.
And in case you're wondering, with Molina getting into the game already in the 5th inning and the Rays not having any other catchers, if needed in emergency, Sean Rodriguez would be the Rays' 3rd catcher. Obviously, Joe, Jose, and the rest of the team.
I got to be honest with you, Todd. I was not wondering, but I appreciate the information.
Thank you.
Before Will Myers went on the DL, the former catcher may have been a candidate, but more than likely it still would have been Sean.
Well, Sean, you can move him anywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, outfield, he can play the corner infield. He can play middle infield.
By the way, the news today on Will Myers, he will see a hand specialist tomorrow, Dr. Carlin. So we should know more news tomorrow. He saw Coco Eaton today, and they'll get some further tests done tomorrow. So during the broadcast tomorrow, hopefully we'll have an update on number 9, who's back in the St. Petersburg area. 0-2 pitches, bounced to Jeff Mathis, 1-2.
Yeah, you hope it's as close to that 2-week, 2+ week.
And Ryan Hannigan had a good day today. So he may be close to that 2-week situation. Tested out the hamstring again. They'll see how he comes through the workout tomorrow. 1-2 pitch, swing and a miss.
Well, Alex Cobb just continues to roll. Everything now coming together. That release point has been found. He's pitching, getting himself in favorable counts where he can go to that pitch right there and pick up the strikeout on that changeup. And you know, the types of injuries, when you're talking about those two players, a hamstring for any player is tough. A hamstring for a catcher, where you're constantly up and down, equipment up and down, squat. I mean, all of that movement, all of that wear and tear, that's a tough injury. And then a guy like Will Myers, the bat speed that he's able to generate with his swing, powerful swing, anything with the wrist is tough.
And that's probably part of the reason why it was such a battle with Hannigan before he went on the DL, because he tried to battle his way through that injury, and it just wasn't getting any better.
Yeah, and that's the tough part. You know, he's a tough guy. He's a catcher. You know, catchers typically, their DNA, they are tough guys, and so he wants to be out there for his team. His team is struggling, and, you know, you just don't want to mess around with it, because if you do something and really pull it good, then you're out for a long time. And so they gave him a couple of days. It didn't make the progress that the team wanted him to, and so regrettably he had to bite the bullet and you know, go on the disabled list. But good news today.
2-1 the count to Randy Wolf, who checked back with Bill Miller on the count. He lined a ball right at Logan Forsythe his first time up, hit it well. This ball is popped high in the air on the infield. Forsythe will have the call and the play, and there's 2 away. The women played before the game today. Rays wives and girlfriends against Marlins wives and girlfriends.
Hey, the Rays wives and girlfriends have a few players.
They do.
They have a few players.
They were missing some of their ringers. I know Allie Shelton wasn't available. She was in Ohio with some family situation. But Logan Forsythe's fiance, Allie Atkins, they're going to get married in November. She's got wheels. She can run.
Let me tell you, she started at first inning, a little infield ground ball. They didn't even throw.
Yeah, it was impressive to watch. I think the Rays wives and girlfriends lost, unfortunately, tonight, but hopefully the men can make up for it with a come-from-behind victory as Escobar takes care of Yelich to end the inning. And we head to the 6th, 3-1 Marlins. To the Marlins, Ben Zobrist will lead things off as the Rays will have the top of the order due up against Randy Wolf. Wolf so far has gone 5 innings, 66 pitches worth, allowed 2 hits and a walk, and the 1 run the last inning after the leadoff walk to Sean Rodriguez came around to score. Zobrist has struck out and grounded out.
Now here's the thing, too, with Randy Wolf hitting in that last half inning, they are going to allow him to continue to pitch as long as he's effective. And these are the innings that they've had trouble with as far as getting their starter to their closer, Steve Cishek. They have not had the easiest of goings on here, so they're hoping that Randy Wolf can lock it down here for the next couple of innings and be able to hand that baton off to the guys at the back end. Middle relief not nearly as strong as it was a year ago, and that's why you've seen the Marlins very active in bringing new arms in. Yeah, they just made a trade, Todd, to bring in Brian Morris from Pittsburgh, actually trading a draft pick, something that you could never do before. They traded their 39th pick in the draft to bring in the hard thrower to try to bridge that gap. Carter Capps on the disabled list, and he was a guy that played a prominent role before that injury.
The only draft picks you can trade are the competitive balance draft picks, and that's what the Marlins traded the 39th overall pick to get Morris. And yesterday after the game, they sent down back to AAA New Orleans Archimedes Caminero, who has been back and forth a few times. So Morris is here, available in their bullpen. That's been the one area, getting the ball from the starter to the back end of the bullpen, that has really plagued the Marlins this year, and why they have the .500 record with all the offense we have seen from the Fish.
I'm just glad that you were able to work in Archimedes Caminero.
I did want to get that in. I was a little disappointed he got sent down right before our series.
So was I. Archimedes, that's like mythology.
It is.
You know, standing on top of the world with a trident.
3-2 pitch is popped in the air, foul. Garrett Jones looks to see if he has a play, and it's 2 rows in. Yeah, you don't get 4-syllable name very often.
And just think of it, Archimedes. I mean, think about that. When I think Archimedes, I think loincloth and trident and sandals.
Owning something,
and daring you to try and take it.
Yeah, I see that. Unfortunately, he's going to have to own something in New Orleans now, as he's no longer with the Marlins. But he'll probably be back. 3-2 pitch on the ground, 2 hops. Third baseman Casey McGee makes the play. Hey, catch every strikeout, every game ender, and every history-making moment on MLB Whip Around, weeknights at 10 Eastern on Fox Sports 1 and streaming live on Fox Sports Go. Zobrist now 0 for 3. One of the 2 hits for the Rays, owned by Yunel Escobar. Escobar with a base hit to right field his first time up. Coming in, Uni hitting .362 against lefties. And along with James Loney, the only 2 guys that had any at-bats other than 1 at-bat by Matt Joyce against Randy Wolf. The National Leaguers have seen Wolf. Uni came in with a 2 for 11 mark against Randy. Rays own just 2 hits. Marlins own just 3 hits. All 3 of the hits for the Marlins came in the first inning. And to be fair to Alex Cobb, with those 3 hits allowed, one of them was a sharply hit ground ball, but a play that Evan Longoria has made in the past. One of them was a sharply hit ground ball, but Uni Escobar was shifted over by Casey McGee, went in for 2 runs. And then Ozuna hit a bullet off the wall and left. That was legit.
Yeah, and that shot off the wall and left led to nothing. That was with nobody on base. But you know what? You mix in a couple of walks, you mix in a few bad counts, and that's what the Marlins were able to capitalize on, and so far they've made it hold up.
On the inside corner, 2-2. Wolf just works the corners,
change of speed.
That's what he did right there again. Another behind in the count changeup. 2-1. Escobar, aggressive, wants something with a little velocity to it. Randy Wolf does not give it to him. The art of pitching. And then right there, even right there, that the 2-1 changeup, he takes for a strike, now 2-2. Then he goes fastball up and in, and he almost got that by him. Really was a late swing there by Escobar, but the changing of speeds will do that. It's not always lighting up the radar gun. It's just moving the pitches back and forth as far as velocity goes.
We see that with Jake Odorizzi.
Yeah, and after the introduction of that slow curve, he's been even better.
Called third strike. Good pitch, inner half. Escobar stays a little longer at the plate. Did not agree with that. That's 7.
These are frustrating at bats. These are frustrating at bats because right here, another borderline pitch, but it's right on the corner. Bill Miller rings you up, and you're frustrated because you haven't scored. You've only scored 5 runs as a team over the last 4 games coming into play, 1 so far tonight. And then on top of it, you've got a guy out on the mound that you're looking at the radar gun and the stuff going, we should be scoring off this guy, and you can't do it. So it really can lead to some frustrating ABs.
I roam around the stands too much. I've never seen that graphic before. That's pretty cool. They had all the strikeouts, some called, some forward Ks, backwards Ks.
Todd, I spend every game in the booth, and I've never seen that graphic before.
There you go. Maybe it's something we're breaking out tonight.
Well, this is a big series.
Yeah, it's a Citrus Series.
Citrus Series.
Battle between the Florida teams. The Rays have won 13 of the last 14. 2 outs, nobody on for Longoria. This is a rocket to left field on 1 hop. It'll be gloved by Christian Yelich.
That is what you want to see more of. Evan Longoria turning on some pitches with authority. And that was a sharply hit ball to left field. Get the head out, get the hands through. That's a beautiful sight.
We haven't seen that a lot in the last 3 or 4 weeks.
No, we haven't.
And that's the Longoria. He's got that swing to right center. When it's on, he's hitting the ball that. But when he can pull the ball like that with authority, that's good to see.
That's when everything mechanically is clicking. Yeah. You're able to take the ball up the other way, but your hands are quick enough to get to the mistakes that are on the inner half. And that's what we haven't seen. And with that starting to come around, look out, because when he heats up, he can put up some big numbers, some crooked numbers in a very timely manner.
His 3 at-bats tonight, line drive, bullet to center field, caught by Ozuna. Then Wolf got in on his hands, broke his bat, pop-up, and that last at-bat roped a single to left. So now 2 outs, see if the Rays can get a 2-out rally going. James Loney at the plate, 1-0 the count. Both times Loney has gone out 3-1, first base to pitcher. And a called strike, 1-1. Joe was toying with the lineup tonight against the lefty Randy Wolf, and wanted to break up his righties and gave Loney a shot in that number 4 slot.
You could start that conversation in that sense about anybody.
Yes.
You could say
Jerry
Joe
Sands.
Madden was toying with the lineup tonight against fill in.
Yes.
Whoever it may be.
Sometimes the pitcher hits 8. Sometimes the pitcher stays in the game and the 8th hitter's pinch hit for. It's all part of the...
Sometimes the guy that you call up from Durham goes right into the cleanup spot.
Against Boston.
In Boston.
Against Sean Lester. 2-1 the count to James Loney. It has worked out beautifully for 6 years.
Yes, it has.
There's a high pop-up into right field. Stanton and Lucas are there. Stanton calls up off the second baseman. And the Rays are out in the 6th. 1 hit, 1 man left on base. It's 3-1 Marlins.
On Sun Sports, Giancarlo Stanton due up second in this inning. So far, he's 0 for 1 with a walk. So, relatively speaking, Alex Cobb has handled him well. And we spoke to Cobb previous to his start tonight about one of the best hitters in all of baseball.
I've seen some of the furthest balls I've ever seen hit off of his bat. So, I'm well aware of what he can do, and seems to have become a much better hitter in the meantime since then also. So he's definitely a guy to keep your eye on in the lineup.
Easier said than done getting Giancarlo Stanton up. As we said, he's due up second in this inning, but for his career, he's 0 for 4 against Alex Cobb. So, guys, if he gets a hit this inning, the blame is squarely on me.
All right, Rich, thank you very much. Ed Lucas will lead things off.
Stand-up guy.
There you go. He's wearing it. Cobb said he followed Stanton all the way through the minor leagues and actually got to watch him in a home run derby when they were in the Sally League All-Star game. Cobb was pitching with Columbus, Stanton with Greensboro at the time, and he said that was the first time I realized this guy hits balls further than almost any hitter he's ever seen. That was all the way back in Class A.
Well, and he's up in the ante here in the big leagues. Last year, 24 home runs, 7 of them were at least 430 feet. Okay, that's great. That's impressive.
Yeah.
This year, what is it, 5 of the 16 are at least 450.
450.
450.
450. That is correct.
You very rarely see one of those.
On the ground, in the hole, that's a base hit. Ed Lucas fought off a 1-2 pitch. He was down 0-2 in the first inning when he skipped one past Evan Longoria.
How about this? And I don't have the updated numbers in front of me, but coming into play today, if Alex Cobb got you to a 1-2 count, anything that happened after that, whether it got to 2-2-3, anything, if he got you to 1-2, your batting average was .081. You didn't get hits off of Alex Cobb after he was up in the count on you on 1-2. Very rare that Ed Lucas able to do that, and in front of Stanton.
Here is Giancarlo Stanton. And the ball gets away on the pickoff throw at first, and Lucas goes to second.
Well, Alex Cobb not happy about giving that hit up, and as he tried to make that throw right there, actually didn't try to make the throw, he made the throw, but he put some steam on that throw to Loney, and it got away from him. You're going to take a look at it right here, and he just yanked the throw a little bit, and as Loney is leaning, it skips right off the back between the 5 and the 9 of Ed Lucas.
Now Molina and Cobb go over signs. This will be the first time the Marlins have had a runner in second base with Molina behind the plate. They had the bases loaded in the first. Ali Solis started this game for the Rays as the catcher and was pinch hit for in the 5th inning when the Rays were rallying against Randy Wolf. So now runner on second. Stanton already with 51 runs batted in on the year. Called strike. So Cobb and Stanton were together as far back as 2007 in the New York Penn League. You mentioned they played in that Sally League All-Star game together. Florida State League together in 2009. And then the Southern League together in 2010 before Stanton preceded Cobb to the big leagues, making the jump from AA to the Marlins. On the ground, tough chance for Longoria. He knocks it down. The first and second on the infield hit for Stanton.
Well, Stanton pulled and chopped that ball down the line. We saw a chopper earlier on a charge situation give Evan trouble. And this one here, he's going to take it back up on it. And that ball right off the heel of the glove and not able to make a play. If he fields that ball, he's got a real good chance to throw Stanton out. But a little misplay right there leads to another base runner.
From where he was, and Stanton runs pretty well, it would have been a close play either way, I think.
It would have. It absolutely would have. However, that ball got down there. I know it was a chopper, but Stanton hits the ball hard, and he comes up clean. He's got a strong enough arm. He could have done it.
So now first and second. Cobb had not allowed a hit since the first or a walk. He had retired 13 in a row before this inning started. And now Ed Lucas on a 1-2 pitch, and Giancarlo Stanton on that chopper. Had runners on first and second, and here's the guy you don't want to see with runners in scoring position, Casey McGee. Hitting a smooth .500 on the year with runners in scoring position and less than 2 outs, including his base hit in the first inning tonight. Thought about a bunt. That might have just been for show, 1-0.
I don't even know why you would show it. I mean, Casey McGee has been swinging the bat in these situations very, very well, as you pointed out, Todd. But the Marlins, too, three quick runs in the first inning and have had nothing to show for it since.
Nobody in baseball has a better average with runners in scoring position than McGee, and now he's looking at a 2-0 count.
Some guys just have the ability to slow the game down. They have a good approach, and they're just able to cash in. You know, you start to think about guys like Pat Tabler. 89 at-bats, I believe it was, with the bases loaded. 44 for 89 with the bases juiced. He was just telling us the story when we were in Toronto.
That was a fastball down the middle at 2-0. McGee chose to lay off. It's 2-1.
He may regret that as this at-bat goes on.
On the line, but slicing into the crowd. And now Cobb has evened it up at 2-2.
And this is where that changeup can come into play. Now that you've gotten back to 2-2, I would say right here, if I'm Alex Cobb and I'm feeling even remotely confident with that pitch, I'm going to throw it twice. And I'm going to bank on the fact that you're going to swing and miss at one of them.
The Marlins have had bullpen action the entire inning, so you would think that the evening for Randy Wolf may be coming to a close. 2-2 pitch on the ground, could be two. Escobar takes it himself, and there is the double play. Rays haven't turned a whole lot of double plays this year, but they've had two tonight, one in the first against the Marlins, and now here in the sixth.
Yeah, and Alex Cobb came into this start having received just one on the season, two here tonight, and both of them coming in big spots. One shut down an inning that the Marlins had built at that point, had scored 3 runs. Well, scored the 3rd run on the double play, but this one here, first and second, nobody out. That's big.
Kind of surprising that he has, even though it's just 6 starts, 1 double play with him, as many ground balls as he induces.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, I think because his swing and miss percentage is so much higher this year, and that's a good block by Molina, and that's what you worry about with the split and the curveball with the runner on third.
I like 2 things there. The block was impressive, but how quickly Cobb got off the mound was equally as impressive.
Yeah, well, because when that ball bounds away, if there is going to be a play, guess who's going to be making the tag? He better be there. You see this ball bound away, someone's got to cover it. The Rays very fundamentally sound there all around.
Garrett Jones grounded into a double play his first time up. Fly deep to center field his last time up.
Well, and going back to what we were talking about with the ground ball double play, I think that because the swing and miss percentage has been so high this year for Alex, those ground balls that he was getting were turning into strikeouts and swings and misses.
In the air to left, Sean Rodriguez plays it for the final out of the inning. Hit well the opposite way, but the Marlins go down with 2 hits and no runs. It's still 3-1 Miami. We head to the 7th. It will be the conclusion to this quick two-game set in Marlins Park. The Rays will face these guys back at Tropicana Field beginning Wednesday. Chris Archer against Henderson Alvarez. He of the no-hitter last year. I'm sure we'll see it tomorrow. It was one of the strangest no-hitters you'll ever see, where he was actually on deck in the batter's circle when he picked up the no-hitter, with the Marlins breaking a 0-0 tie in the bottom half of the ninth inning. There you see both guys with 11 starts. Alvarez a sub-3 ERA, and he'll have the most unique pinch-a-penny first pitch of the season tomorrow, I promise you. Chris Archer will be on the mound for the Rays.
Todd, you've been teasing me with that for like 3 days.
That's our Chevron starting pitching matchup. It is, it's unique.
I've stayed away from it. I don't want you to blow it.
Good.
Don't tell me about it.
No, it's he's got a little flair to him. He's got a little flair to him. You'll see it tomorrow.
Just on the first pitch.
Well, no, during the game too, but mostly on the first pitch.
Okay.
Chris Hatcher, the new pitcher. Hatcher comes on after 6 very solid innings from Randy Wolf, allowed just 3 hits and a run. Hatcher recently called up from AAA New Orleans to see his numbers in limited games, just his 5th appearance out of the bullpen. Former catcher turned pitcher, and the first batter he will face is Sean Rodriguez.
Oh, good velocities you see right there, 95 miles an hour. But this is where the Marlins really have struggled. Their middle relief, that trying to bridge that gap to their closer.
In the air, foul, out of play.
And actually, their closer had a rough one yesterday.
Cishek.
Yep. Gave up the 2 runs late to the Atlanta Braves. They were able to come back and win that game 4-2 after being down 2-0 early. They've done the strong-armed lefty. Well, he's got a good arm too, good velocity, and his command has been getting better and better as the years have gone on.
Pretty well hit on the ground, but the third baseman McGee makes the backhand play, and there's 1 out.
That's a nice play by McGee, because that was not an easy hop. He was playing even with the bag and had to backhand that ball. Those typically are the toughest. Sometimes those balls, as we saw with Evan Longoria, they bounce up just a hair more than you expect them to, because they're hit so sharply. They're off the heel of the glove, and there's no play made.
Rays batting in the 7th inning, trailing 3-1. Desmond Jennings with the lone RBI in this game, as he doubled his last time up in this game for the Rays, that is. 2 RBIs for Casey McGee for the Marlins, and the 3rd run came in on a double play. No RBI credited for Garrett Jones. Rays with just 5 runs in their last 4 games coming into tonight, after scoring 25 runs in their previous 4 games. The last 4 games just a total of 5, and now tonight 1 run on 3 hits as they play in the 7th. Well, yesterday's game, the Marlins game you're talking about, Nathan Eovaldi was around 95, 96 pitches through 8 innings. They elected to go to the closer, Steve Cishek, in the 9th inning. He doesn't give up many home runs, but he gave up a 2-run home run to Evan Gattis, and that was the difference in a 4-2 loss, and a disappointing weekend series for the Marlins. Broken bat, but that's going to be a base hit for Desmond. The barrel ends up closer to third base than home plate, and Desmond owns 2 of the Rays' 4 hits.
A bat goes down a hero.
Yes, it does.
Get something started here for the Rays in the 7th inning. Evan finds the middle of the field and finds it open, more importantly. And here's where that speed on the base paths comes into play for the Rays, down 2.
And you saw earlier with Mike Dunn warming up in the bullpen, Joe has some lefty options on his bench. Matt Joyce, David DeJesus, but obviously that's why Mike Redmond has the lefty up in the bullpen. So Forsythe will hit against the righty, Hatcher here, and he'll ground 1 to third. Could be 2. McGee to second for 1. Lucas to first for the other. And the Rays have hit into another double play. They're second in the American League behind the Rangers in that category. 7th inning stretch time at Marlins Park. It's still 3-1 Miami. including those Rays fans. We promised you earlier in the game we'd have the AT&T fan photo of the game. Here's how it works. You tweet your photo to hashtag SunSportsFanPhoto for a chance to be shown in an upcoming game broadcast brought to you by AT&T. And there is today's winner, Thomas Peacock.
That's another way to get it done.
How's that? You guys have narrowed down to the ways to win this thing.
Well, yeah, it was a member of the crew, typically either you, Kelly, or Orestes, or an animal, a dog, a cat, something cute like that. Now, if you go with 4 ladies,
yes,
4 of the Rays girls,
yep,
I never took that one into account.
They maybe threw a little curveball on you today because you guys thought you had figured it out.
Yeah, well, like I said,
it's another thing I don't get to see roam around the stadiums. It's good. I get to see what the photos look like.
You know what else you don't get to see?
What's that?
Late night with the Rays photos of Todd Callis.
No, I hear you guys enjoy those, but I don't get to see those.
They get better and better every year.
Brad Boxberger is the new Rays pitcher, 17th game on the season for Tampa Bay. See his ERA, a solid 1.47. He will face the 6, 7, and 8 hitters in the Marlins lineup. Marcell Ozuna, Adeiny Echeverria, and Jeff Mathis. Rays down 3-1. Marlins scored all their runs in the first inning, and 3 of their 5 hits came in that first inning as well. Ozuna has the only extra base hit of the game for the Miami Marlins. Doubled in the first, 2 outs and nobody on, and was left at second. Boxberger ahead 0-2.
Brad Boxberger, he's gotten a lot of big outs for the Rays this year. Features a good fastball, a good breaking ball, a good changeup. All 3.
That pitch just misses the outside corner. Boxberger and Molina. Jose's so good at suddenly having a word with the umpire. That time he adjusted his shin guard as he kind of turned around to talk to Bill Miller.
Well, look how close it is. We've seen it called a strike tonight.
He gets him on the next pitch anyway as he goes down swinging. Boxberger picks up a strikeout with the first batter he faces.
See, that's the array of weapons that Boxberger has. He goes 95 away, doesn't get the call. Then he goes changeup. And the action on that pitch, he starts at middle of the plate, just above the knees, and takes it down and in. We'll also see that breaking ball that he'll feature. And he also has that interesting little arm action where he's very slow through his delivery, and then he's got a really good and quick arm whip. Creates deception.
Echeverria with a bunt foul. And Joe Maddon's really liked this guy a lot ever since the Rays acquired him. Logan Forsythe, part of that trade. Brad Boxberger was the more unheralded piece of that acquisition, and he has been a key member of the bullpen since he's been up from AAA Durham.
Yeah, and he got that opportunity. Was that against the Orioles? Bases loaded, nobody out, and he comes in and punches out 3 guys on 9 pitches.
That was,
no one's done it before.
They look back as far as they could look back on records and couldn't find another example of that. Bases loaded, nobody out, 3 outs on 9 pitches, all strikeouts.
And forgive me if it wasn't the Baltimore Orioles. I just figured I would throw out a team, and they came to mind. But he did it against somebody.
Was the Orioles, May 8th. You are the winner of the fan photo of the day.
I think I just gave it away, though, because I
AT&T.
kind of outed myself.
You're usually 100% sure, and that time you were 99% sure.
Yeah, close. You can picture it happening,
right?
And you're like, those uniforms are pretty unique.
How about that swing? You talk about changing speed.
Yeah,
that was a swing when the ball was almost in Molina's glove.
Yeah. Well, listen, you watch the guy before strike out on a really good changeup. He starts messing around with your timing, and then that fastball's middle, and you talk about emergency hack, and way too late. The alarm bells had already been sounded.
Well, he struck out 2 so far, has Boxberger. Jeff Mathis, the hitter. Alex Cobb, in 6 innings of work today, allowed 3 runs on 5 hits. And Mathis struck out twice, 2 of the 5 strikeouts picked up by Cobb. Alex also walked 2. That's the one thing in his post-game comments he's really going to be bothered by.
He will. He is such a perfectionist. When he goes out there to pitch it, he's going to focus on that first inning. Forget about all the good work he did after that. And you know what? That's what the really good ones do. Mm-hmm. They understand, listen, if I'm doing my job properly, you're not going to hit me. So when I'm not doing my job and you're able to plate some runs off me and I walk 2 guys, that's what I need to focus on. That's where I need to make some adjustments.
Tried to hold up, but he went around 1 and 2.
So that's what you'll do. Yeah, that's not that he's not happy about the way that he recovered. He's just going to focus on, I put us in a hole. And a lot of it was my own doing. I walked 2 of the first 3 hitters of a game. That is unacceptable.
That is the difference in the game right now. Rays trailing 3-1. If this inning continues, the former Ray, at least minor leaguer, Derek Dietrich waits on deck. He was in the Yunel Escobar trade. Pitches away. He's on deck to pinch hit for Chris Hatcher. There is Derek. Normally their second baseman, given a night off tonight, committed a costly error for the Fish last night, or yesterday I should say, in their loss to the Braves. So Mike Redmond just wanting to give him a day. There is a pitch inside. Those corners are tough to find for the Rays. It's 3-2. Strikes out the side. Brad Boxberger all swinging. Ozuna, Echeverria, Mathis. They all go down at the hands of Brad Boxberger with a strong 7. Here they are. Boxberger striking out 3. And we head to the 8th with the Marlins leading 3-1. Is Star Trek night. Join Captain Joe J. Madden, his number 1, Sean Rodriguez, and the rest of the Rays Enterprise as they take on the Mariners. Purchase the special ticket package and get a seat in the press level as well as this Star Trek themed shirt. For tickets, visit raysbaseball.com/special events. Coming up on Friday, right after the Marlins are in town, the Mariners are in town. The Rays are in the beginning of what is 20 out of 23 games in the state of Florida as Mike Dunn comes on for the 8th inning for the Miami Marlins.
Well, there's a lot going on in those numbers. First of all, 24, now 25th appearance. How about the 4-3 record? That's a lot of action. Tell you,
Steve Cishek is 4-2.
Yeah, I mean, far too many decisions coming out of that bullpen.
They're 56 games into the season.
Yeah, I mean
that's 13 out of your 57 games.
I was going to say final stats, 4-3 record for Mike Dunn. Fine,
right?
You know, beginning of June.
A little unusual.
Yeah, well, he's a power lefty. You saw more strikeouts than innings pitched.
First batter he will face is Jose Molina, and then he'll get a lefty as the Rays bench is filled with lefties right now. Kevin Kiermaier, Matt Joyce, and David DeJesus to choose from. It looks like Joe's going to go with the youngster Kiermaier. Ground ball right side. Jones has it, flips to Dunn. 1 pitch, 1 out.
This is why a bench is so important in the National League. As you see, the Rays have Jake McGee up and warming in the bullpen because you're going to use it. You know, pinch hitting for the pitcher spot late in games. You know, there's a lot of moves to be made in the National League that you just don't see in the American League. Probably with the Rays, you see it more often than most American League teams. Joe will use his bench as much as any AL manager, maybe more. But in the National League, it's imperative.
Kiermaier hit an inside-the-park home run Saturday in Boston. It was the Rays' only run of the last 2 games at Fenway.
This is the one thing, and not to get completely off topic about this game, but it'd be the one change that I'd love to see made in interleague play is allowing the fans in Tampa, in St. Pete,
I agree with you.
to see the pitchers hit, to flip-flop it, play National League rules in the American League parks.
Kiermaier gets a base hit against the lefty as he gets it past Garrett Jones. He's a 1-out base runner. I think that makes a lot of sense because it'll be so unique for both sides.
Yeah.
And if you face each other, especially like you said, these series where it's 2-2.
Yeah, I mean, right here, Kiermaier, nice job with the plate coverage. And how about him out of the box?
Mm-hmm.
How refreshing. On a base hit, well, you just think back to his inside the park home run from Saturday night. He was at top speed about a third of the way down the line towards first base and never let up in one of the quickest inside the park home runs you'll see.
Ben Zobrist the batter. Rays running out of time. 8th inning, 1 out. Back to the top of the order against Mike Dunn. Zobrist takes a pitch for a ball, 1-0.
Well, most everything that you're going to see from Dunn is hard. He's got the fastball with really good velocity. You saw the slider there at 87. So that's what you're thinking as a hitter. Gear it up and get ready to pull the trigger. You got a base runner. He's got speed, tying run at the plate.
He's almost exclusively fastball slider.
Yep.
Every so often he'll drop in a curveball, but pretty much a 2-pitch pitcher.
And you can get away with that coming out of the bullpen,
right,
in his role. But for a hitter, you know that whatever's coming out of his hand is
going to have some velo.
It's going to have some velo. So get ready to. He doesn't give you that big range.
There's the slider inside, 2-1. Ben 0 for 3 tonight in the leadoff slot. He's hit against a lefty all 3 times. He grounded out twice against Randy Wolf and also struck out. And again, as Ben has come back from this dislocated thumb, he was more comfortable initially hitting left-handed. It's getting to the point now where he's equally comfortable, but I'm sure he'd like to get that hit right-handed here. And he does, into left field. On a 2-1 pitch, and the Rays have the tying runs aboard with 1 out here in the 8th.
Well, you get Randy Wolf out of the game, you get into the Marlins bullpen. The Marlins bullpen has not been as strong this year, and it's cost them some victories, and here the Rays have a little something going again, but it makes it easy. It makes it easy. They know they're going to get something hard, and if they make a mistake out over the plate, you put a good swing on it and hit it hard, and the Rays have found 2 holes.
The Marlins have used Mike Dunn and A.J. Ramos very similarly to the Rays using Jake McGee and Joel Peralta. Those are the setup guys leading into Steve Cishek. With Escobar and Longoria due, the lefty is going to leave. And there is A.J. Ramos, who will be in to take over with 1 out here in the 8th. 3-1 game when we come back.
Marlins Park. Rich Hollenberg here, sitting amongst a number of Rays fans, by the way. I don't know if you guys have talked about that yet, but I just want to remind everybody, tomorrow at 6:30 p.m., Orestes Destrada and I will have the Rays Live pregame, brought to you by your Gulf Coast Honda dealers. We'll talk about a good pitching matchup tomorrow, Chris Archer and Henderson Alvarez. And, of course, before that happens, you're going to want to tune into Rays Live postgame immediately following this game, presented by Checkers. I will be in the clubhouse talking to Joe Madden and assorted Rays players. Todd, B.A., you and O will have the post-game anchorage. Guys?
Thank you, Rich. Yudel Escobar with runners on first and second, facing A.J. Ramos, in the first pitch is up and in.
Ramos on for the 27th time. He has 3 decisions at 3-0, 27 strikeouts in 23 and a third innings. In a tough spot here.
Foul tip caught by Mathis, 1-1. Ramos has allowed runs in each of his last 2 appearances. When A.J. Ramos is finding the strike zone, he is very difficult to hit. But one of the issues he has had is with command. 19 walks this year in those 23 and a third innings.
Yeah, far too many, especially for a back end of the bullpen guy.
Down in the count here, 2-1. Escobar followed by Longoria. The Rays trying to rally down 3-1 here in the 8th. In the air to left field, over and making a catch is Yelich. Looked like he lost that ball momentarily.
Well, you know, if you look in here, inside Marlins Park, there's banks of lights up above the third deck. And you wonder if the ball got into those lights. Because you'll see right here, it looks like he's got a bead on it, and as it starts to come down, yeah, it's something definitely caught his attention. And he starts to panic and able to find it late and catch that ball right off of the ground, much to the chagrin of Yudel Escobar.
Hit well by Uni, but he lost it and found it in a split second, or that could have been trouble. So here's Evan Longoria. Hit the ball hard twice against Randy Wolf. Called strike, 0-1. Lined out his first time, drilled a single to left his last time.
Yeah, and like that single to left, like that swing, like the power in that swing. Like those numbers too.
Breaking ball called strike. Longoria thought it may have missed inside. It's 0-2.
Yeah, you could tell by the reaction. That was a close pitch, a borderline pitch. Not a lot of those going the Rays' way tonight. He puts his head down thinking 1-1 and then realizing right there it's 0-2.
May have thought it was down because that had a lot of the plate. 0-2 pitch. Checked his swing. No swing, says Vic Carapazzo.
Well, smart pitch here by Ramos. 0-2. Go ahead and expand with that pitch. And Evans started, but clearly stopped.
Kiermaier on second. Good speed. A base hit to the outfield. Should make this a 1-run game. On the ground. Slowly hit to Lucas. And he makes the play, and that'll do it for the Rays in the 8th. 2 hits, 2 left on. We head to the bottom half of inning 8. It's still 3-1 Miami. By authority of the Tampa Bay Rays, they may not be reproduced, retransmitted in any form without the express written consent of the Tampa Bay Rays. All accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of your Tampa Bay Rays. 3-1 as we head to the bottom half of the 8th inning. Rays with some defensive changes. Kevin Kiermaier, who pinch hit for Brad Boxberger, stays in the game. Jake McGee comes on as the new pitcher for the Rays. Logan Forsythe moves from second to third. Ben Zobrist moves from right to second. And Evan Longoria is taken out of this game, and it'll be Jake McGee batting in the 3 spot. McGee coming on for the 27th time. You see Zobrist moving in from the outfield. So Joe wants to move the conga line so that the pitcher spot doesn't hit till number 9, but you usually don't see Longoria leave a game.
No, that is, well, listen, there's been a few things that have happened the last few days, the last few weeks that we've not seen very often, but pulling Evan Longoria out of a game is a first for a non-injury.
There is Longo. Hit the ball hard twice tonight, ends up with a 1 for 4. So McGee hits in the 3 spot, which will not come up for another, basically the number 9 spot in that lineup now, as James Loney will lead off the 9th for the Rays. First batter that McGee faces is a pinch hitter, Jeff Baker.
You know, and it's not that you have to go to that spot. I mean, you could take someone else out hitting behind him or, you know, further up the line. That's
what you don't want to see happen. And Joe's rolling the dice here, figuring if the Rays are going to rally, hopefully they'll win it with 3 runs in the 9th. You don't want to see this game tied up and his spot come around again.
Well, but that's the risk you take.
Right.
That's got to factor into it. And when you're taking out, you know, a guy like Evan, you know, that's struggling or not. That's a tough pull right there.
Foul tip, 2-2.
And he has swung the bat better in tonight's game. The line drive to center, the hard line drive to left. In the last at-bat, what happens there if that pitch, the second pitch, is called a ball in a 1-1 count?
Good point.
But now being down 0-2, 1-2, you got to expand and cover, and he ends up hitting a ground ball to the right side, which is certainly understandable when you're in that kind of a count against that kind of a pitcher.
Strikeout of Baker. That's 19 straight over numerous appearances that Jake McGee has retired. 9 of them via strikeout.
Jake McGee has been so consistent and so dominant. And he does it primarily with one pitch, which is even more amazing.
I mean, he had a spectacular month of May, did Jake McGee. Back to the top of the order. Christian Yelich takes a called strike.
Well, just one after the other. He just stands out there and challenges you. What are you going to do? Because you know what you're getting. I mean, you're going to occasionally see a wrinkle, but let's be honest. Everybody's going up to the plate. It's total for show. They're looking for the fastball, and he gives it to them time and again.
It's a lot of fun to watch. It's just pure power.
Yeah.
This is it. Can you hit it or not? And most guys can't.
Yeah, almost all of them. I mean, almost all of them. No one's done it in over a month.
I mean, his month of May, 14 appearances, 13 1/3 innings, no runs. 24 out of 26 scoreless this year. McGee ahead of Yelich, 1 ball and 2 strikes.
You have to start talking about him in the All-Star game.
Yes.
From what he's done. And then you start to think about him as a future closer with what he does and how he dominates.
There you go again. Another strikeout. Let's take a look at some of this. Is fun. Jake McGee highlights.
They're actually not fun. It's just fastball after fastball after fastball.
If you're a Rays fan, they're fun.
But the swings that you get, I mean, there is absolutely no change right here. I mean, that ball middle in against a pretty good fastball hitter in Encarnacion. Really, this whole lineup for the Blue Jays, pretty good fastball hitters. You get swings like that. It doesn't matter lefty, righty, what side of the plate. He is going to light you up with the mid to upper 90s fastball. And that right there is just not fair. If he's able to do that and get ahead of you.
Strike one.
Strike one. Don't let that become a weapon.
Ed Lucas has battled tonight. He has gotten behind in the count. 0-2 on Alex Cobb his first time up, base hit past Longoria. 1-2 his last time up, base hit to right field. 2 for 3 on the night. And then he sees a wrinkle from Jake McGee, and now he's down 0-2.
Now, that was a good wrinkle. You know, his curveball really has been a show pitch. That was a good pitch. That was a good strike one curveball quality. And if he's able to do that, and even if he just uses it early in the count, because every hitter we say, they're going up looking for the fastball. He's able to drop in curveball, strike one, immediate jump, and they haven't even seen the fastball yet.
Lucas stays alive with the 0-2 pitch, but he grounds it softly to Ben Zobrist, who's now the second baseman, and a 1-2-3 inning for Jake McGee. So we head to the ninth. Rays need at least 2. James Loney will lead things off. A 3-1 lead. Steve Cishek is the pitcher. Very reliable closer in save situations. He's only blown 1 this year, but last night or yesterday afternoon in game 23 came into a tie game with a 4-1 record and gave up a 2-run home run to Evan Gattis that gave the Braves a 4-2 victory. 11 out of 12 in saves this year. Let's take a look here.
Here it is. Cishek, he's going to give you a tough angle. But that ball elevated, and Gattis, you know, one of the stronger guys in all of baseball, and he takes it right off of the thing.
The sculpture.
The home run.
The home run sculpture in left center. That was a bomb. There it is. No sculpture displays tonight. No home runs by the home team. In fact, the combination of Alex Cobb, Brad Boxberger, and Jake McGee limited the Marlins to just 5 hits, 4 of them singles. So here we go. 9th inning. Cishek will face James Loney. Cishek comes from that sidearm delivery. Loves to get ahead of lefties with that little backdoor slider if he can drop it in there on the first pitch. There it is, and he gets it. Called strike.
Do you notice James Loney? He is up close to the plate and just almost leaning out over the plate, trying to get a good look at that arm angle, even more so than normal. Look at him crouching down. That's typically his 2-strike look. Realizing that he's going to have a tough at-bat on his hands here, even though that arm out away from him. Typically, lefties are going to have better at-bats against a guy like Cishek than righties because of the extreme arm angle. But either way, he's tough. That's why he's closing games.
Look at that. That's nasty.
Yep. I mean, he started it out off the plate and actually breaking it back to the middle. And that's what's so difficult, because you see that ball so far away from you, and then here it comes, makes a left turn.
And then his fastball dives away from lefties. So
yeah,
it's a deadly combination. Headed Loney 1-2. There's the slider, chopped slowly towards the middle. Echeverria from just beyond the infield cutoff makes the play. And Cishek has 1 out here in the ninth.
And that's all really Loney. You know, down in the count, 2 strikes. You're looking to put the ball in play, and James Loney has that very good up-the-middle approach. Just not able to get enough on that one and get it by Echeverria.
Since the first inning, the Rays have been locked down and just have not had any offense going on. They'll hope Matt Joyce coming off the bench can provide something here as he pinch hits for Sean Rodriguez with 1 out in the ninth. Rays limited the Marlins to 2 hits after the first inning and no runs, but the Rays have managed just 1 run on their end. Swing and a miss, 0-1. It's a little bit low, 1 ball and 1 strike. Joyce is a pinch hitter this year, 2 for 10 coming off the bench. He has the most pinch hit appearances of any Ray. Rays need a runner to bring the tying run to the plate. Cishek ahead, 1 ball and 2 strikes. Rays have used 2 previous pinch hitters. Jerry Sands lined out in the 5th inning to right field. Kevin Kiermaier with a pinch hit single in the 8th. Called 3rd strike. Joyce looking at a slider inside.
You're the left-handed hitter waiting for that pitch, starting off the plate, breaking back to the outer edge or middle. He starts this on the outer edge and breaks it to the inside corner. Much you can do with that pitch right there. Look where the location was.
Right on the bottom quadrant of our strike zone on Fox Tracks, and that is 2 outs, nobody on. Up to Desmond Jennings to keep things alive.
He's had a good night. Hopefully he can keep it going.
2 of the Rays' 6 hits for Desmond, including the only RBI. He had that double in the 5th inning, scoring Sean Rodriguez. Rays have scored just 5 runs in their last 4 games prior to tonight. In the air to center field, Ozuna is there. The Marlins win this one 3-1. Rays have now lost 7 in a row on this road trip and 9 overall in a row on the road going back to the previous trip, as they lose tonight in Miami by the score of 3-1. We'll be back after this.